Major support for Out to Lunch is provided by the law firm of Jones Walker, established in 1937 with over 375 attorneys and offices throughout the U.S., providing a comprehensive range of services to a local, national, and international client base. JonesWalker.com. And by Luba Workers Comp, a regional insurance carrier dedicated to providing reliable workers' compensation coverage to employers and workers in 13 states across the Southeast. With personalized service, trusted expertise, and tailored solutions, Luba helps businesses protect what matters most. Discover more at lubawc.com. And by JP Morgan Chase, a partner in financial planning. Looking ahead to retirement, growing your business, or for commercial banking, JP Morgan Chase offers advice and solutions tailored to individual needs and client well-being. More information is at jpmorganchase.com.
From Collins on St. Charles Avenue in uptown New Orleans, we're Out to Lunch with Peter Raschuti, Tulane University A.B. Freeman School of Business professor and director of the Birkenroad Reports. It's business, New Orleans style.
Hi, I'm Peter Raschuti. Welcome to Out to Lunch. Generally, by the time someone gets invited on a show like this, they've figured out how to tell the story of their business in a way that makes their journey seem like a steady climb from humble beginnings to current success. In telling these stories, entrepreneurs will talk generally about setbacks, but they don't typically elaborate on specific obstacles. Like, for example, this scenario. Suppose you're a startup entrepreneur with a new product and you get the call you've been waiting for from Walmart with a giant purchase order. Now, instead of spending $10,000 on raw materials, you'll need $200,000. Your shipping costs are going to go from $5,000 to $50,000, and you'll need 10 more people to pull this off, which is $1 million in new salaries. You can borrow this money, no problem, right? You're going to have to be able to pay it back, and you have that Walmart purchase order to prove it. But you discover that there's no traditional lender like a bank will lend you money unless you're A, profitable, or B, have 2 years of receipts. So you don't qualify in either of those categories. So what do you do? Well, one option is to go to a national company that's headquartered here in New Orleans called Republic Business Credit. Republic Business Credit specialize in what's called accounts receivable finance. Basically, they will loan a company money based on a purchase order up to $20 million. Or they'll buy the purchase order off the company minus a fee, so the company gets cash immediately, and when the purchaser pays the invoice, the payment goes to Republic Business Credit. Lee Guglielmo has been helping companies finance their business at Republic Business Credit since 2011. She's the company's Senior Vice President of Business Development. Lee, welcomed Out to Lunch.
Thank you, Peter. Thanks for having me.
Another thing you hear about in a typical startup success story is the PowerPoint pitch. Andres Barcelo and his wife, Ashley Webb, moved to New Orleans in 2017 to be closer to Ashley's family. 3 years later, when they had their lives derailed by the pandemic, Andres and Ashley started growing vegetables in their 9th Ward neighborhood. When they discovered that okra, beans, cucumbers, and peppers grew well, they grew more of them till they had so much that people suggested they could start a farmer's market. And so they did. They then began adding products from other local folks like bread and hand pies, candles, soap, pickles, and jam. And before you know it, without a single PowerPoint presentation, Andres and Ashley had built a business. Today, you can find Barcelo Gardens Fresh Market most days of the week in varying locations, including their flagship location on Piety Street in the Upper 9th Ward, and pop-ups and markets in the Irish Channel, the Marigny, Harahan, and Napoleonville. Andres Barcelo, welcomed Out to Lunch.
Thank you very much for having me. Nice to be here.
Lee, let's start with the most obvious question, which is the foundation of Republic Business Credit's existence. If a person with a business has a legitimate purchase order from a major retailer, with that as collateral, why won't the bank lend them money? Are there federal rules that prevent that? Is it just risk aversion? Or what's going on there?
Not necessarily. We usually come in when it's generally a startup company, so they haven't been in business for 2 years, and banks want to see the 2-year financial performance, or they want to show profitability, the company to be profitable. So we'll come in and help with the startup. So if you're new and you're getting into the Whole Foods of the world, we're trying to put a brand on the shelf, selling to Whole Foods, Targets, Walmart, whatsoever. Once you deliver the product, that creates an invoice, and that's when we can help out with the invoices. So that's generally when we come in. Or you're a high growth company, you're an existing company, and all of a sudden, things are great, and then you do get a new order from Costco or so forth, and you really need that working capital to help fund that receivable. We can come in and help on whether it's financing the inventory, sometimes to help purchase the materials to make the product. Or with a lot of wholesale and retailers, they don't pay within like 60 to 90 days. So a company would have to wait 60 to 90 days to get paid by that invoice, where we could purchase that invoice immediately to help out with the working capital side.
And what a lot of people don't know is if it's 90 days is the contract, they'll pay on the 89th day, right?
They will,
So-
and larger retailers could get away with that, and so they do. We do a lot in old full service, and I think old full service does a lot, of late payments too. Even though your terms are net 30, 45, 60, they still don't pay within that 60 to 90 day range.
Andres, one of the disadvantages of living in a city is the volume of fresh food necessary to feed everybody means stores are buying from big ag. The freshest produce we can get typically wasn't picked today or yesterday, and often not even this week. The only solution to this is what you're doing at Barcelo Gardens and Fresh Market, urban agriculture. You and your wife have grown this business from feeding yourselves to feeding hundreds, maybe even thousands of New Orleanians. So this might be a tough question, but I don't know anyone better placed to answer it. Is there a way for urban agriculture to be organized in a way that it could scale up to enough to feed 50% of the city of New Orleans?
I think I can answer that in twofold. Number one, we're not just growing our own produce. We're working with farms in the surrounding areas of New Orleans, Mississippi, Louisiana. Anywhere within a 200-mile radius is considered local food. So that being said, we are supporting a lot of local farms through what we're doing. On the urban ag side, yes, if you have space limitations, land limitations on what you can grow, a lot of people are actually turning towards aquaponics or hydroponics, which there's actually a new business down on the West Bank that's piloting that with the Chamber of Commerce. I believe they were called the Aquaculture Center of Excellence. They're growing catfish on the bottom, plants on top.
Yeah.
Speeds up your growth time about threefold in really small amounts of spaces. So that is the future of agriculture. But there's a lot of small mom and pop people too who are growing a lot in their small spaces. So yes, urban agriculture is most definitely a way to get the freshest produce and to make sure that there's resilience.
So we get another angle to this. Is it you that has to go gather the produce from farms?
Yes, I am the entire supply chain currently.
We're now decades into the post-Hurricane Katrina era of New Orleans. There is still a lot of unused land in the lower ninth where houses used to be, but I think it's pretty safe to assume by now that people are not going to rebuild homes on that land. Do you know if there is any discussion about using this land for urban agriculture?
I believe there are a lot of small growers who are using the land already in the form of community gardens, small urban ag spaces. I know there's a lot of push with the USDA to help people get the funding and the infrastructure to get that going. There are small mom and pop groceries popping up in the lower ninth. For example, Sankofa, who we work with, is building one there, and there is more coming to these food desert, I'm not sure if that's still kosher to say, food desert areas. But yes, there's a lot of needs still, and there's a lot of opportunity for empty vacant land to be repurposed as agriculture or even repurposed into water-based agriculture if the ground is no good, which is a lot of areas.
Now, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off on that. You mentioned that the ground is no good in some of these areas?
Yes, some areas there have a lot of metal contaminants. There might be nickel or lead. There might be a lot of, especially in places of where houses used to be, there might be a lot of concrete. In my own personal experience with urban ag, we've had barriers where we're breaking into concrete and you can't get below that top level of, I guess, runoff soil. that's accumulated over the past 20 years since Katrina. And then you get underneath that, you got solid concrete. So there are certain challenges to urban ag that you're not going to find if you're purchasing farm soil in the country. That's been developed for years, so it's a different ballgame.
I mentioned earlier that one of the ways Republic Business Credit is you buy an accounts receivable from a business. The practice is called factoring. For example, if a company has a order from Walmart for $1 million worth of merchandise, you'll pay the company $1 million minus a fee, and then you own the invoice, so Walmart now pays you. But what happens if something goes wrong? If there's a supply chain problem or the company is just inefficient and delivers late? How does that work?
We constantly keep up with trends, especially to some of the larger retailers. Like, for example, during COVID, their supply chain was greatly affected and products got stuck in Asia and got stuck at the port. So instead of getting to these retailers on time, they were held up. So we track and monitor the creditworthiness of the customers, and we know some of our competitors, and if there's some issues, we kind of know from the front end that they're still fine. It just might take longer to get paid. And so in that case, TJ Maxx was a little delayed, and so we extended those terms. So they weren't paying within 60 to 90 days, so we gave, maybe our clients 120 days for eligibility. So we work with our clients if something happens and it's an unexpected event and so forth, we're going to work with our clients and make sure they still have the working capital on that side.
And most people wouldn't know this, but there was a company here, we had them on the show. It was going to be the Receivables Exchange. And,
right.
Yeah, and one thing I learned from those folks is that the accounts receivable is like bigger than the New York Stock Exchange, bigger than the bond market, but nobody knows that.
They were a lot big, and they went public too. We were different from them. We've always had a different business model where they had invoices, and they were bidding them to larger people that would buy those invoices. We don't do that. We really finance companies and bring them in, and we provide them a line of credit based on those receivables and maybe inventory. So it's a relationship and a process.
Andres, if we bring you back here, and I'd like to in 3 years, what do you think your operation will look like? I know you've got ideas for expansion.
Well, who knows what's going to happen in 3 years, the way things go in this world. What we're hoping to see happen is that we could expand on a couple fronts. We have a larger location in Assumption Parish. We bought a former Masonic lodge out there that needs renovation, and we're hoping to turn that into a secondary fresh fruit and vegetable market. I'd like to see us be able to bring in more help, so I'm not the only supply chain. We have more people to go to markets, more people to handle the general day-to-day work, or even growing more urban ag. I'd really like to grow a lot more of our own. Currently, it's me and one other farmer who's doing all the growing, so expanding in all those categories would be really helpful. Again, our main goal was always to put money back into local farmers' pockets. So whether that's in collaboration with us, buying their products, or working together with us on farms, the vision is huge. I mean, we could take this beyond Louisiana. This could be a Mississippi thing. This could be a national thing where we continue to provide fresh fruit and vegetable access to local communities directly from their neighboring farms that are not accessing city business, a lot of these farmers.
You're listening to Out to Lunch. I'm Peter Raschuti. I'm talking with Andres Barcelo from Barcelo Gardens and Fresh Market and Lee Guglielmo from Republic Business Credit. We'll continue our conversation when we come right back from this short break.
Out to Lunch is brought to you by Basics Underneath. Fine lingerie, personalized fitting, curated swimsuits, and workout wear. Uptown on Magazine Street and at basicsunderneath.com. And by Tracy Moore, broker, realtor, and partner at Rev Realtors, offering over 20 years of experience representing buyers, sellers, and investors. Learn more at tracy.revrealtors.com. Additional support comes from Chateau Sew, a fabric store on St. Charles Avenue. Chateau Sew offers quality fabrics, sewing notions, and classes. Details at chateausew.com.
You're listening to Out to Lunch. I'm Peter Raschuti. I'm talking with Andres Barcelo from Barcelo Gardens and Fresh Market and Lee Guglielmo from Republic Business Credit. Lee, first of all, we're very happy you're doing this, but why Why New Orleans? Your parent,
Renaissance Bank, yes.
is headquartered out of Tupelo, and of course the second most famous thing in Tupelo. The other is Elvis.
But Elvis.
Yeah. And why New Orleans? I mean, you could have been Houston or Atlanta.
Republic Business Credit started in 2014. We were an entrepreneurial-based company in New Orleans. We originally got our financing from the Municipal Retirement Systems of Louisiana, so the Louisiana State Pension Fund. We were one of their private credit investments, so it made sense to open up a business in Louisiana and wanted to be headquartered in New Orleans. We started off with 4 employees. We had 2 owners and maybe 4 or 5 other people that did anything from legal to portfolio operations, and we had 1 client. So we were new. And over the 14 years, we've successfully slowly grown the business. We've added some different types of financing products. And then a little over 2.5 years ago is when Renaissance Bank acquired us. So we are a wholly owned subsidiary of Renaissance Bank.
Let me ask you a question from both sides. Why did Renaissance want you? What is it you bring to the table?
They didn't really have a commercial financing platform, so a factoring arm that they could go to when companies like that come up. We also have another like e-commerce lending product, and they wanted to grow the bank, but wanted different choices when their bankers get approached. Instead of saying no, we have another lending arm that can help. And so that's why we came in, and it just really was a good fit. We've been really happy with the results and the relationship, and they've been really great partners for us.
You know, sometimes it doesn't work out that way.
Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes.
I'm glad you're on that side. Andres, you're talking about growing the company. Are you looking for investors, or are you going to grow organically, if you pardon the expression?
We're definitely open to any avenue of bringing in more funds to accomplish the mission. We've grown organically, as you've said, but we've also tapped into crowdfunding platforms like GoFundMe and donations. My vision is the success of the mission. It doesn't really matter how the money's coming in, as long as we can make it happen.
And that leads to, what do you define success as?
For me, it's continuing to support local farms, getting their products to local market. We make an effort to hit food desert areas. For me, that means places that don't have walkable, bikeable grocery within a 20-mile radius. Louisiana and Mississippi are full of those things everywhere. You got dying towns that used to be industrious. We've gone from thousands of citizens down to maybe 500 people, children leaving town, never coming back, and grocery leaving with it. You have urban, larger spaces like New Orleans or Baton Rouge, or even Shreveport, for example, where you're not getting that local business into the city, or you have pockets of the city where grocery is not accessible. New Orleans East is a big one that comes to mind. For me, success means that vision of adding nutrition and accessible grocery to everyone comes to pass one way or another, through us, through partnerships, other people taking what we're doing and running with it. Success comes every which way. So,
you notice I threw in the word organically.
Yes.
That was, I'm trying to find, it's
Clever.
kind of like a Mad Libs thing. There's Lee, what does your day look like?
Depends on the day. I follow up with referral sources, which could be banks, other lenders, some private equity funds, investment banks. I have relationships with people all over the country. We get new leads in, so I'm always on calls with new prospects to figure out if we can and can't help. If we issue a proposal, there's a lot of going through the proposal just to make sure we're structuring something that's right for the company, whether we have to change the advance rates or pricing or certain verbiage on the term sheet, just like any term sheet would be. So it varies day to day. I do a good bit of traveling and attend some conferences, industry conferences, and so forth. So
In fact, that's what I was going to ask you about, is what about footprint or territory?
I'm leaving to go to Dallas tomorrow for an event and some meetings. Right now, I'm pretty much focused in the Dallas, Louisiana, Gulf Coast region. But if I know somebody in Denver and they give me a call, I certainly would take that call. There's 6 people that do what I do on the sales side with Republic, spread throughout the country. So we're somewhat territorial, but if somebody calls me, we can work on anything, and we're team players with that.
I think I've figured out what you have in common. You're both the hardest working people.
The hardest working people.
That sounds pretty brutal, actually. We had someone on the show, Lee, that I never forgot this. Is she made very high-end, really nice sweaters here, and she used to sell them to a very high-end retailer. And this was, I guess, the extreme. But they would send, without doing accounts receivable, they would send off the sweaters and wait 90 days till they got the money back. And I don't know, it just seemed that during that period when they were waiting, had to lay off employees. They had to, I just can't imagine operating like that.
Sometimes that can be tough, and especially if you're buying a product maybe from Asia and it takes 90 days to get here. A lot of that is considered purchase order financing, we don't do that, but we have companies that we partner with. But if there is a lag and a 90-day lag, and from the time it leaves one country to get to the United States, that also often can tie up cash flow. So there's purchase order lending for that. But once the receivables are generated, then we can help out on the working capital side with that.
The pandemic was probably a zoo for you, right?
It was crazy. And we had some companies that did really well and some companies that hurt. But some companies all of a sudden, some of our clients started making face masks because they were an apparel t-shirt company. So
they didn't want people to know who they were. That would be, that's the kind of client
so they
you're
blew
looking for.
up. So we actually did well during the pandemic with high growth companies because people were selling a product, providing a service that was completely, started by what the pandemic caused.
Andres, you brought some duck eggs with you here today. How do you get ducks to lay eggs? Now, I'm obviously a city kid, so you're going to have to help me here.
Certain varieties of ducks are actually more prolific than chickens. For example, the Khaki Campbell, which I recently got the past year, they lay about 340 eggs a year on their own with no help. And actually, duck eggs are more nutritious for you than chicken eggs. They are more longevity of the egg is longer. The duck egg is thicker on the shell. They are more healthy, less prone to disease. So there's a lot of reasons to have ducks, aside from them being really messy. But I'm not sure why it's not a very common thing in the United States to have duck eggs, but they're more nutritious than chickens. So and no difference in laying abilities.
And I assume you're going to leave us with the duck eggs.
Yes.
Okay.
You can definitely
good.
try those out.
It was. Hey, I saw a video once, and it was so cool. It was a guy in L.A. I think his name was Ron Finley, and he called himself the Gorilla Gardener. Have you ever heard of him? And does that relate to what you're doing?
Actually, yes. Very, very closely related to what we were doing. We actually started, as I think I spoke with one of your team members about how in Los Angeles we started doing community gardening based on going to a meet and greet with Ron Finley's people. And just starting up that little curbside lot, you have that space between the sidewalk and the street that's just grass or unmaintained, and it belonged to the city. And a lot of places in Los Angeles that was being overgrown, and so Ron Finley went and took that and turned it into urban ag, growing fruits and vegetables in that space. And that was kind of the vision we started with, and it led to everything we're doing today. So very, very close related.
Is that legal? Can you grow things on the city's?
Actually, yes. He went through Los Angeles City Council, and he overcame the legal barrier of making that legal all throughout Los Angeles, which is a huge step forward. So
I have
amazing
no
work
idea.
on his part.
You could be planting anywhere now that we've opened that
It's called
up.
guerrilla gardening for a reason.
Lee, when you've got these accounts receivable, so you have two choices. That's what I've been trying to figure out. Hold the accounts receivable or sell them to someone else, right? Is that true?
So we purchase the company's accounts receivable. We actually do the purchasing, and all the cash flows through us.
And Andres, one of the things I thought I was going to read about is that these would be kind of discount vegetables or such. It's not. These are really high-end vegetables, and You said basically about the same price you'd get at a supermarket, but fresh.
We try to be affordable. That's always the goal. But we're also trying to pay the farmer what they're asking. We don't negotiate with farmers on their prices. So that brings a little bit of a, where can we get an affordable but high quality, high end grocery? And I would say that what we're offering is probably some of the highest end grocery you're going to be able to get in the city. It was picked within the week, most of it, or sometimes within days of you getting to your table. That doesn't necessarily mean it's unaffordable. We do offer, we're working with Market Umbrella. They have a program called Grow the Good right now. So that we accept SNAP and EBT, WIC at our store. And with that Grow the Good program, you're getting a 50% discount on all the vegetables and fruits. And even dairy and eggs and things like that, which is a fabulous price for the people who really, really need it and are on government assistance. That being said, you will find that our products are very similarly priced, or sometimes even lower than what you're getting at a local grocery store from overseas or another state.
And Lee, what about, the fees? In other words, you get $1,000 accounts receivable. What are you likely to give them, and is it a range?
We generally charge interest. So we would charge interest on what you borrow or the money that you use. Depending on the size of the facility, we might do a collateral monitoring fee. And our facilities are generally floating facilities. So as the interest goes up, we charge our clients more. As interest goes down, we charge them less.
As much as we like Andres, he wouldn't be a client for you, right?
He might be difficult. Unfortunately, we don't lend to companies such as restaurants or like a nail salon or where your end customers are consumers. We have to do business to business.
Andres, you see, I tried.
I did have a question for you. I was curious about that. Since we're paying a lot of these local farmers in a cash basis,
right?
How would that translate to what you're doing as a banker?
The cash is tough because it is cash, so it's kind of like a COD, and we can't do that. So we generally want to wait for the payments to come in, because the longer they wait, or if they're not getting paid within 30, 40, 60 days, that's where we wait for the check or the ACH deposit to come in. So cash is usually, transactions are usually excluded.
What about, is there a way for small farmers, mom and pop establishments to kind of be able to take advantage of your services with what we're doing?
They can. There's also a law called the PACA, which is the Perishable Agricultural Commodities Act. That sometimes tends to make it difficult for companies like us to provide financing for farmers, and it's a way that they set it up so farmers can be protected on how they get paid.
Lee and Andres, there's a saying people use in general conversation to describe how today is pretty much like every other day. The saying is business as usual. Now, interestingly, I don't hear a lot of people in business saying that, mostly because business is typically anything but business as usual. There's almost always an obstacle, a wrinkle, a problem to solve. Lee, you're in the business of solving the biggest problem of all for most businesses, operational capital. And Andres, your business is dependent on the most fickle of all elements, the weather. One thing you two have in common is, without a lot of fanfare, you're both doing something vital for the local business community and the community in general. Thank you both for what you're doing, and thank you for taking the time to join me today on Out to Lunch.
Thank you. Thank you.
Glad to be here.
My guests on Out to Lunch today have been Lee Guglielmo, Senior Vice President of Business Development at Republic Business Credit, and Andres Barcelo, co-owner of Barcelo Gardens and Fresh Market. We edited this show to fit into the time slot here on WWNO. You can hear our unedited conversation and find out more about Lee's loans and Andres Markets by listening to the Out to Lunch podcast. You can find and subscribe to the Out to Lunch podcast on your podcast app and on our website, itsneworleans.com. If you want to know what we all look like, you can find photos from this show on itsneworleans.com and on our Out to Lunch social media. Out to Lunch is a production of INO Broadcasting for itsneworleans.com and WWNO 89.9 FM. The producer of our show is Grant Morris, our technical producer is Eric Myrtle, and our researcher is Amy Irvin. I'm Peter Raschuti. Thanks for joining me. I look forward to meeting you again next week around the lunch table for more business New Orleans style on Out to Lunch.
Out to Lunch was recorded live at Columns on St. Charles Avenue. Columns serves lunch and dinner 7 days a week, hosts weddings and private events, features evenings of live jazz and more. Reservations for dining and hotel rooms are at thecolumns.com. Columns is a member of New Orleans & Company. More information at neworleans.com. Major support for Out to Lunch is provided by the law firm of Jones Walker. Established in 1937 with over 375 attorneys and offices throughout the U.S., providing a comprehensive range of services to a local, national, and international client base. JonesWalker.com. And by Luba Workers' Comp, a regional insurance carrier dedicated to providing reliable workers' compensation coverage to employers and workers in 13 states across the Southeast. With personalized service, trusted expertise, and tailored solutions, Luba helps businesses protect what matters most. Discover more at lubawc.com. And by JP Morgan Chase, a partner in financial planning. Looking ahead to retirement, growing your business, or for commercial banking, JP Morgan Chase offers advice and solutions tailored to individual needs and client well-being. More information is at jpmorganchase.com. Mitchell Foreman wrote and performs all the music on Out to Lunch. You can hear Mitchell's music anywhere great jazz is sold or streamed, and at mitchellforeman.com.